went to dedicate a cemetery during the Civil War. They were both to speak, and the first man got up and was an orator, a famous orator. And this is before microphones. He spoke for 2 hours, and the people were just so impressed by his skill, by his genius. When he finally sat down, the crowd thought there's nothing left to be said. And then the second speaker got up, and he was tall and kind of awkward. He got up, realizing he was standing on sacred ground, and he'd written his speech on a paper bag while on the train from Washington, D.C. And he got up, and 7 years ago, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Now, the other masses tell me, I've searched this out, the first speaker, his name is Edward Everett. I think Everett Square in Boston is named after him. I could be wrong. But his speech is written someplace. But all of us, I'm sure at school, if you haven't yet, we had to memorize the Gettysburg Address. The Christian Brothers, you had to memorize it. It was that good. So what's the difference? Well, the first speaker, everybody had the attention on him. Wow, look at this. Isn't this remarkable to have this gifted speaker here at Gettysburg? And then I call him Father Abraham. When Abraham Lincoln got up, President Lincoln, the focus was not on him at all. The focus was on all those who had died, both Confederate and Union. All those had died in this terrible, terrible battle. Well, 2 men went to the temple to pray. The first was a Pharisee, and the other was a tax collector. Now, the tax collector, he was a traitor. You talk about someone who was despised. He was working, a Jewish person working for the Roman occupying army, taxing his own people. No one wanted to have anything to do with a tax collector at that point. And the Pharisee, Nicodemus was a Pharisee. St. Paul was a Pharisee. I mean, they had wonderful qualities. They were honest. They followed the law. They were generous. You'd want them for a neighbor. Terrific. What happened in this story? What happened in this parable? Well, the Pharisee compared himself with other people. Did you notice that? He compared himself. And basically was giving God a progress report on just how well he was doing. He did all those things. He was honest. He fasted twice a week. I don't do that. He tithed. And he just was so impressed with how well he was doing that he thanked God that he wasn't like those other people. Oh, thank you, Lord, I'm not like them. Greedy and dishonest and adulterous. See, so if I can give you any, especially you young people, never compare yourself with anybody else. Never do that. Be happy to be who you are. I think I told you I flunked Latin. In a sophomore in high school, I had to go to summer school. But my parents never compared me. They never said, well, why can't you be like your brother? Never. They never compared me at all. They accepted me as I was. Be happy to be who you are. Be happy to be just as you are. So the Pharisee prayed to himself, and he compared himself with other people. When we worship, you sit in the presence of God. In the presence of God. We can't compare ourselves with God. I mean, we just can't. And when we sit in the presence of God, God who is just all beauty and goodness, I mean, beyond anything we can imagine, and we're his children, and let God love us. Let God accept us as we are. And if I can turn this around, instead of saying, Lord, I thank you that I'm not like the rest of humanity, if we can say, Lord, thank you that I am like the rest of humanity. Thank you that I'm human. Thank you that I'm made in your image and likeness. Thank you that I'm imperfect. Yeah. Only God is perfect. You worship what is perfect. You love what is human. So we're a mixture of virtue and weaknesses. Both. It's called human. It's weeds and wheat all mixed in together. Do you know your weaknesses? As you go through life, you'll discover your weaknesses. And instead of denying our weaknesses and being embarrassed by our weaknesses or ashamed of our weaknesses, St. Paul had his weaknesses and he gloried in his weaknesses, that the power of Christ may come upon me, he said. You see, the tax collector in the back of the temple, he didn't raise his eyes. He just, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner, in the presence of God. He was a sinner. He knew it. Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. The only other time that I know of where someone was pounding their breast like this, like we do it, Lord, have mercy, was the centurion. When Jesus died, he pounded his breast and said, surely this was the Son of God. Pounded his breast like that. That's where it comes from, the Lord have mercy. The tax collector in the back of the temple. But God is most powerfully present at our weakest point. Wherever you are most weak, God is most powerfully present, and that's where God enters into our lives. And that's where we receive God's mercy. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? So even our weaknesses, our faults, our failings are used to allow God's mercy to enter in. So that's how we worship. That's how we begin every Mass. We don't even try to hide it. Lord have mercy. Christ have mercy. Lord have mercy. We're like the tax collector at the back of the temple. Fill us. So you can't earn it. You can't deserve it. All you can do is accept salvation. Just receive it. So let God love you. Let God save you. And don't be ashamed of our weaknesses. Only God's perfect. I don't like perfect people. I really don't like perfect people because they don't exist. I like human people. Yeah. Now, we just got back Thursday night from visiting St. Catherine Drexel. We spent a lot of time at her grave, and the church, the mother house, is called St. Elizabeth. And her older sister died, Elizabeth Drexel, and she named the church after her sister, St. Elizabeth. And we were given by the Sisters of the Blessed Sacraments some things to take home. Now, this is a reliquary. It's very old. It has to be over 100 years old. Inside, it has a little piece of our patroness's clothing, St. Catherine Drexel's clothing. It's a second-class relic, but many people, you know, they call it venerating it. They pick it up, they kiss it, they ask her to pray for them. So I'm going to place this over by her statue so that anytime you come into church, you can go up there and ask St. Catherine to pray for you. Also, they gave us, this is a good chunk of her clothing. Look at the size of that. And this is the little card from the archivist, the authenticity of this clothing. And Jerry Gagne is making us a cabinet with a nice glass top where we can put all of the relics of St. Catherine Drexel, her pencil and all the pieces of clothing, so that everybody can see it, that they'll always be on display. Now, this is a little monstrance. A little monstrance. It's got to be probably around the year 1900. And Catherine's younger sister is named Louise Drexel. So once Elizabeth died, Catherine and Louise, the two sisters, inherited a fortune, millions of dollars, millions. And they spent all the money on the Native Americans and the recently freed slaves, the black slaves. The order started in 1891, and Louise and her husband Edward, this is from the Drexel, this is from Louise Drexel. It says, "Pray for Edward and Louise Morel." That's the sister and brother-in-law of St. Catherine Drexel. Isn't that exciting? So they gave this to one of the convents in Louisiana, where the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament adored the Eucharist. And now they've given it to us. We've got it. And I promised the sisters that we're going to use this. This is not a museum. This is a place where the faith is alive and flourishing, and we're going to use this. Now, then the little sister says, now, you know, you really should have this replated. And we got Jim Lawrence right here, see? And so I said, oh, we got Jim Lawrence. I'm with a bunch of Yankees from New Hampshire. What did they say? Don't touch it. Leave it as it is. Don't replate it. You'll ruin it. Leave it as it is. So, Jim, we're going to leave it as it is. All right? We're going to leave it just as it is, but we're going to use it. This is given to us. It's got to tell you something. So I'd like to, after Mass, if you get a chance, come up and touch these things and see these things. But let it remind us of what a wonderful saint we have. That they gave their fortune for the most neglected people in our society, the Native Americans and the black freed slaves. Extraordinary. And not only gave their fortune, but they gave their whole life. You know, she gave her whole life for it. Just to give you an update, and I know St. Catherine would be she's very pleased about this. Haiti, we're trying to figure out, we don't know for sure yet, but it seems like from St. Catherine Drexel Parish here, 27,000 has gone so far to Father Mark and the children at the orphanage. It's still coming in. And I'm going to take some out of the charity account too and throw that in with it, so we can get it as high as we can. But I know that she's pleased. I know that she's pleased. And so thank you.